Welcome, adventurers and fellow world builders. My name is Yadro, and this is Yadro Gaming. Today we're going to discuss the 6th session in the new campaign that we just started. The party had last left off outside of a barn in Ambermere where they were trying to deliver a shipment to Tellourant, and in the night were attacked by a bunch of storm crows. So the party was freaking out about this last session on what they were going to do, and they ultimately decided, let's just try to fire blast these things. If the place goes up in smoke, that's just what it's going to happen. But we need to kill these crows. We need to protect the shipment, and we need to protect ourselves to make sure we don't lose anybody. So I ended up turning this into a skill challenge, and it went about as poorly as I've ever seen a skill challenge go. Everything they did, and I tried to be lenient. I set it at, I think everything was a DC 13 for them to actually succeed on the check. As long as they gave me something reasonable and they didn't just try the same thing over and over again or try to repeat saves, it was going to work. It was like kind of stacked in their favor. They could choose their abilities. You just couldn't do things back to back. Yeah, everything was not going well from pretty early on. We had a couple nat ones in there on the skill checks. They were trying to buff each other. They were coming up with creative ideas, but literally nothing was working, and the whole table was just so deflated. And they were just like, well, there's no reason we're doing this. Like, we're just going to lose. Like, what is happening here? So I had to remind them, like, hey, like, I gave you an opportunity where there's some things that you can do where you could actually like risk taking some damage to yourself in order to like give a small bonus to what your abilities are, what your ability checks are. You can also take stress and add a couple to the roll that you had. So then as the table got more stressed and things started to progress towards a total failure and losing the barn, the shipment, or having the building collapse on them or fighting inside this burning building, they started to take on a little bit of stress. And I think everybody had 1 to 3 levels of stress before the fight was over. But it was down to the wire where the last two people in the rounds needed successes on the save to actually like win the skill challenge on their checks. And it came right down to it. The party was helping them stack things in their favor. They were fighting off the birds. There was fire starting to catch. Crows were busting in. And ultimately it ended up where like Mongo rushed through in a rage and got the final success that they needed to win the skill challenge and have the fight spill out into the streets with no fire damaging the shipment or bringing down the barn. Once they were out there, they had a bunch of swarms of storm crows to fight. They had 5 or 6 large storm crows land on top of the building and then join the fight after the swarms were done. And it ended up being like a really neat encounter where they were trying to manage all their resources. They were taking on stress, and then they had a fight immediately outside afterwards. So then for the rest of the trip, they knew that they were going to have the stress on them and their rolls were going to be a little bit more poor, which is also a heightened level of excitement, I guess, at least from a DM perspective. So after they were able to fight off the crows, they protected the barn. They were able to rest for the night, and then the next morning they said, we need to deal with these storm crows because they're just going to come back or they're going to cause more problems, so we need to find out where the nest is. And talking to the guards, they knew where it was northwest of town a little ways, and they decided to go out after it. Easy enough to find. There were a ton of these birds in the tree. It was this huge tree in front of them that they had to climb. A couple of them were able to do athletics checks to actually get up there. They were kind of being accosted by other like little storm crows as they went, but the party was able to kind of snipe them down as they did to protect them. They were able to make it to the top and then throw down some lengths of rope to help other people scale to the top. And when they did, they found a nice, really large nest up there where all of them were gathering. There's some really like large individual nests inside of there. That some of the other larger storm crows have been occupying and kind of spreading. And in the middle of this huge nest was this like large blue gem embedded in the bottom of it. They were able to get in there and pry it out, and then the whole tree more or less like shut down with this power as it was pulled out. So it's like these blue like energy veins throughout the tree, and all of that went away once the gem was pried out. So they had this interesting gem in their possession, and this harkens back to Penny's backstory, where some of these gems were found and enhanced from Tellourant, and this is what her that like young boy ended up blowing himself up and killing a couple people in her society from her backstory. This is like one of those gems that came through. So they now had it in their possession, and they could attune to it. And in doing so, I mean, it was just a homebrew item I made where like they could cast a lightning bolt from it, and then it would explode and be gone. But it gave an extra 1d4 lightning to attack rolls. Let you use the shocking grasp cantrip, things like that. So Darren decided to take that and he just kind of put it in his breast pocket, which is be important for later. And the party decided to kind of get out of there. Looking over the top of the nest, there were some coins in there, some shiny bits and baubles, and a couple little magic items that the party found, because crows are wont to do that. They'll find some shiny things and bring it back to the nest. And in doing so, Mongo found a couple of these like bloodstones up there. He was like drawn to kind of grab them and pick them up. And he like kind of went down into the boughs of the tree to examine them because he like really just felt like punching something. Punching a tree as he's done throughout campaign. So he had these bloodstones in his hands, and he was just like driven, failing these wisdom saves, just punch the tree. And he was just wailing and wailing and wailing on it. His hands were getting all bloody, and he just felt like these stones shatter in his hands and hurt him. When he looked down, he had no blood on his hands, and all the gems were gone. So they had been absorbed into him by the god Baal, who had chosen found, and that's going to be an ongoing thing later on. But we'll see if those come into play later on when I give him a homebrew feat with those stones that were embedded in him. Bloodstones, blood god, it's all very cool. So the party decided we can't let this thing stand. The crows are going to come back. We need to make sure that the magic of the tree doesn't remain there. Let's light it on fire and get out of there. So that's exactly what they did. They sprayed some oil in there, they lit it on fire, and then they got out and went back to Ambermere, where they were hailed as heroes. In exchange for doing that nice thing, Ambermere, based on the Quiet Year, was really good at crafting some magic items from like gems that they got from Tellourant. And in doing so, they could basically create armor that gave 3 points of resistance to any elemental damage type. So you could say, like, I want studded leather of psychic resistance, like anti-psychic studded leather. In doing so, you take 3 less points of psychic damage from an attack, and I think you get +2 to a saving throws against effects of that type. Pretty cool item. They ended up buying 2 of those, as well as like some regular breastplates to beef up the AC of the party. And I think 9 was the only one that doubled down on the anti-elements, where he got anti-poison and anti-psychic. I think anti-psychic studded leather, and then he got like a clava that comes up over his face for poison. So pretty cool decisions. There was a little bit of an argument about who should, how the party funds should be managed, because he used his own funds to do most of that, and then the other people bought their breastplates with the party funds. So it was kind of like, well, why did I use my own funds for that when they could use their funds to do the other thing? And a little argument brewed up at the table, and that kind of prompted a short that I made asking how other people deal with treasure at the table. But ultimately, it was just decided, as long as it's for the good of the party, we could use party funds. We just don't want to use party funds to fuel vices. Like, we don't want to be gambling with party funds. We don't want to use drugs from the party funds. So keep some of that on your person. But if it's to help out the party with a magic item or something, like, yeah, let's do it. Which is pretty reasonable, which is what we've done in the past and kind of what I figured what should happen. But it was a little argument that brewed up at the table, but we were able to take care of it pretty quickly. So after the party figured out kind of everything they wanted to do in Ambermere, unfortunately they couldn't go in. Penny got a little care package, just some carrot cake from her mom. The party set back off to Tellourant, and a few days into the travel, they set camp. And in the middle of the night, this kind of like wild, red-haired, rough-looking like barbarian boy came out of the woods to warn the party that it was really dangerous and they should be more careful. If he could sneak up on them, which he did, then they weren't going to do well in these parts of the woods. And like jumping into like the campfire light, an individual just like literally like jumps out of a tree and lands with a thud, and he's like pointing a great axe at all of you. He looks to be about 15, very rough and tumble, long, mangy hair, and he just addresses you like, what are you all doing here? So you know it's dangerous out here?
It's about to be dangerous for you.
Hey, Mowgli, put down the axe real quick.
No.
If
you're out here, you're dangerous.
I want to teleport behind him. I'm not trying to hurt him. I'm putting it to his throat. Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to pull away from you.
Gotcha.
15.
15. You get behind him, put the dagger in, and he grabs your arm and like maneuvers himself. He doesn't throw you, but he's able to like move your arm and do like a barrel roll. And he's still like holding up his axe, and now he's in like an aggressive position.
I am going to cast thaumaturgy and use it to like make my voice boom and scream at him. Drop the axe now.
And as you do that, you just hear like feathers, like birds, like everything in the area runs away. As he like ducks behind and like looks up at the sky and like runs underneath the tree and is like looking up. What are you doing?
The rocks.
I'm gonna make a non-lethal attack of opportunity.
Yep.
Oops. Terrible. I'm taking it back, so it's a 9 to hit.
9 hit. Swing. Unable to connect to them.
And we're not from around here. Like, did we do something?
Yeah, I am. You don't know what's in these woods?
We told there were big birds, but we look at all these feathers.
Yeah,
we
no
just
kidding.
killed
Why are
birds.
we screaming?
Because some lunatic just jumped out of this
that was my
shadow.
bad.
It's my territory. What are you doing?
You're like a child.
Your
What does that
territory.
even mean?
You're a child.
Yeah. Well, small, but.
And as you like look him over, like he looks rough and tumble. Like
Give
this
him
is
a
the guy. He probably wouldn't accept it.
These are from
I don't
these
need
are
any, I don't need
Ambermere
anybody's
carrots.
help. I'm doing fine out here.
Okay.
Then maybe fuck off instead of trying to attack people in their sleep.
Good luck. You don't
Is it just you? You're alone?
What? Hold on.
He's backing off the
I think we got off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, we sure
Is that
shit
the Simpsons
did.
where he
You tried to
disappears
attack
into
us.
the
Yeah.
edge?
Yeah. In our defense, you did come swinging an axe at us.
You're gonna ruin my hunt with your fire.
Oh, okay.
Sounds
Guys,
like a you
let's
problem.
put out the fire.
It is a me problem. That's why I came here.
What kind of...
Go somewhere else.
I am. And he heads off in the woods.
So the next day, the party continued on their path, where they found like a large boar or some kind of creature like that, just dead in the middle of the road between this pass, where the road kind of cut through this hillside, with a large dead animal in the middle with like a bunch of leaves and sticks stacked around it. So they were like, we're just going to go around this. We're not going to investigate that, and we're going to move on. So the party kind of scurried around it and kind of tucked away with the cart in the woods. While Penny and I think Shay decided to try to get a little bit of a better look on the situation, and moved up on the hillside to watch. And in doing so, they saw that red-headed young boy across the pass on the other side, and he was like, "No, get out of here! Don't want to be here!" As a giant rock dive bombed from above on top of this body, slamming on top of the corpse of the creature that he had slain as a trap, and then crashed through into a spiked pit trap beneath. This creature was wailing out. The boy on top drew his axe and just jumped from the top of the hill into the pit to attack and kill this thing. And the giant rock creature looked over its shoulder and breathed a cold breath that blasted Penny and whoever else was up there with her, and they took 40 some damage or something and nearly knocked them unconscious. Luckily, they made the saves and were able to get out of there. And they're like, "Wow, that thing's really powerful. And that kid's going on at 1v1." And they said, "We're not helping him. We're just getting out of there. You saw what that did to us. Let's just go." So the party got back on their cart, rode northward with a couple of people looking out the back, and just watched as this rock was just thrashing around in this hole and was pulling itself out, making these loud screeching noises, and they assumed the kid was dead. Hopefully they never run into him again, or hopefully that won't be important to the story about where they are headed. So the party ended there, was just outside of Tellourant. They would make it there in the next session, and we got a chance to unwind a little bit. So we had a chance to finish out start off with a skill challenge, I guess. They were trying to avoid the crows. They got to do a little bit of exploration. They got to handle a little climbing up a tree together, finding some cool magic items and some bits and bobbles, and closing a thread with the storm crows. Got some rewards, got upgrades to their armor, got to spend a little bit of the coin that they've been accumulating, and ultimately met an NPC that I was hoping they would help out, which they decided not to, which is totally fine. And they left a 14 or 15-year-old wildling boy to die versus this frost rock in a trap that he set to try to kill this thing, which is kind of way above their power class most likely, and this kid was taking it on by itself. Nine did notice that kid had a red gem embedded in the back of his neck, very similar to the one that they had found the day before. So I threw a lot of things at them, through some tough encounters. I gave them some choices about things that they wanted to do, opportunities for them to speak with one another and make some decisions and see how they would play out, and get into a fight above table about how party funds should be managed. So classic D&D, a classic TTRPG session that ended with pretty positively, and we all had a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy these stories that I'm putting out. I'm going to keep doing so, and I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, why be a player when you can be a god?